41 seconds. That was the number on the display between a dying warlord's ship and the hull he meant to turn into wreckage rather than hand over. Across from that countdown, a woman with grey-streaked hair set down a coffee cup gone cold 2 hours ago and said two words that ended a war before it ever got a name. Take it. To understand how a single freighter came to hold that kind of fire, you have to go back 3 weeks to a stone-walled chamber where a Keth researcher named Threvis stood in front of 12 officers who had already made up their minds. She had 5 minutes and a data pad full of warnings nobody wanted. She told them human bodies did something strange under threat, that the chemicals meant to freeze other species instead sharpened human reflexes, steadied their hands, dulled their fear of pain. She told them humans had spent thousands of years being broken by famine, disease, and war, and had never once stayed broken. She reached for a concept in their language that had no equivalent and borrowed the human word for it instead: second wind. The moment a body finds more, exactly when it should have nothing left. Warlord Sithvar, arms folded, ended the meeting kindly enough. All mammals break, he said. We have unmade 14 species. This one will be no different. Threvis lowered her pad and said nothing else. Later, she would wish she had begged them to cancel the ambush instead of asking for a footnote in a threat file. The Verath corridor was made for ambushes, a dead stretch of vacuum pinched between two asteroid fields, no traffic, no light, no reason for anyone to be watching. 9 Keth warships killed their engines there and waited 6 hours in the dark, patient the way hunters are patient, until a single carrier-class hull drifted into the throat of it. Wide, boxy, unescorted. Everything in the design files said harmless. Sithvar watched it on the long-range scanner with all 4 amber eyes and felt the particular satisfaction of prey that doesn't know it's already caught. He gave the order. 9 ships folded into the shape his people called the final embrace. 3 wide left, 3 wide right, 2 above and below, his own flagship sealing the only exit. In 3 centuries, that formation had never once failed to end a hunt inside a minute. The surrender demand went out in 17 languages. Power down. You have 90 seconds. The freighter didn't slow, didn't turn, didn't answer. At second 80, the channel finally opened, and a voice came through that had no business sounding as unbothered as it did. Give us a minute. We're finishing breakfast. On the Dominion's fist, nobody moved. V. Thorin, the young officer at communications, repeated the words back to himself, as if saying them twice might rearrange them into something that made sense. Sithvar felt something small and cold settle behind his ribs that he refused, on principle, to call fear. Inside that freighter, the unbroken Meridian, Captain Yara Soles had finished her coffee before the demand even ended. She wasn't tall, wasn't loud, had a torn sleeve she'd never bothered mending, and 20 years of walking out of situations exactly this bad. Her ship's mind, Sable, had already spent 4 minutes doing what the Keth formation couldn't, mapping every exhaust port, every blind angle, every weakness in a cage built for prey that behaves like prey. Because the Meridian wasn't a freighter, under hull plating engineered to look as unthreatening as possible sat reactive armor, rated to absorb 9 ships firing at once, 4 rows of retractable mass drivers disguised as cargo doors, and a burst engine that had no business existing on anything this size. She'd been laid down in a black-budget yard 14 months earlier for exactly one purpose: to be underestimated by something that deserved it. All right, Solis said, the same flat tone she used signing off on maintenance logs, and her crew heard the difference anyway. The cargo doors opened. The first shots didn't go toward the flagship. They went sideways into the rear thrusters of 3 flanking ships, in the one spot on each hull where the armor ran thinnest. All 3 went dark in the same second, not destroyed, just dead weight, drifting in a formation that needed every ship exactly where it had been standing. Return fire came in waves. Shields on the Meridian flared and dropped, 74%, 61, 58, but held, because 2 decks down Chief Engineer Tomas Ray was rerouting power like a man rerouting his own bloodstream, shifting reserves to wherever the fire landed heaviest before it landed. One drifting hulk rotated into another ship's line, forcing it to break formation or collide. Sable saw the gap before the Keth pilot did. The mass drivers turned, fired, and two more warships came apart, one losing its weapons array outright, the other its bridge, spinning now with nobody at the helm. 5 ships gone, 4 left, and the corridor walls narrowing around them, squeezing the box Sithvar had built to trap something small into a space too tight for his own fleet to move in. Concentrate everything on the forward hull, he ordered, and it worked. Shields cratered to 39%, then 32%, then a breach tore open on the port side before bulkheads slammed shut around it. Petra, still filming at the comms station with tears she hadn't noticed running down her face, caught her data pad as it slid off the console and kept recording. Burst drive, Solis said. 3 seconds. For 3 seconds, the Meridian moved like nothing her size should move, straight through the gap in the Keth line, putting a round through a warship at point-blank range on the way. 3 ships left. Then 2, when the flagship and its escorts converged everything on one section of hull and the shields finally failed completely. 4 full seconds with nothing standing between the Meridian and the vacuum. And in that gap, she turned toward the nearest ship instead of away from it, and put it down for good. Vithorin's voice cracked over the flagship's silence. "Sir, 2 ships requesting permission to withdraw." Sithvar didn't answer right away. He was watching a species that, cornered and stripped of every advantage he'd planned around, had simply gotten harder to kill the longer the fight went on. He thought of Threvis and her 5 minutes, and the word she'd borrowed from a language that had clearly earned it. He opened the channel himself this time, no translator, just his own voice, because he needed to hear the answer with his own ears. "Human vessel, what are you?" The pause on the other end carried ordinary sounds, footsteps, a console humming, someone reading off a status update like any other shift. Then the same voice from before, quieter now. "You built a cage for something that runs. We don't." Sithvar stood very still. He ordered his last surviving escort to withdraw, go home, report what happened here, and told Vithorin to clear the bridge. Alone, he pushed the Dominion's fist to full thrust, aimed straight at the center of the ship that had unmade 8 of his 9 vessels, in the old way his people understood but never celebrated. Not a bid to win, but a refusal to be taken alive. "Flagship's coming in hot," Sable said. "Impact in 41 seconds. Soles looked at the number once. "Take it." The mass drivers fired at 400 meters. The Dominion's fist didn't die in one blast, but in a chain of them, fuel lines and reactor cores failing in sequence, scattering itself slowly and silently across the dark the corridor had always kept so well. Afterward, Soles sent unarmed shuttles to the 2 ships she disabled but never destroyed. Engineers, not soldiers, fuel cells, not chains. Finch looked at her like he wanted to ask why. "They're still people," she said. "Patch them up and send them home." 2 Keth survivors reached a rescue vessel 6 days later and told a story their high command sat with in total silence. 1 carrier, 9 warships, 40 minutes, and a rescue afterward that nobody had ordered and nobody quite understood. Threvis got a message 2 days after that. A larger office, a research budget multiplied by 12, and one line beneath the formalities that wasn't standard procedure at all. "You were right. We should have listened." She read it twice, found no satisfaction in it worth naming, and reported to her new desk the next morning anyway. Word of the corridor moved through the wider galaxy the way the most important things always do, not in bulletins, but in the quiet exchange between 2 diplomats at a reception, one of them repeating what he'd heard, and neither of them needing to add anything else. The Meridian came home 71 days later. No escort, no announcement, just a docking sequence like any ship back from any ordinary shift, her hull carrying replacement panels a shade lighter than the rest. An admiral met her at the gangway and offered Soles a promotion on the spot. She thanked him and said she'd rather keep the ship. He looked at her for a moment, then nodded, as if he'd expected exactly that answer and had only asked out of duty. On the bridge, empty now, Sable logged the final line of the engagement and let the cursor sit there before closing the file all threats neutralized, resuming original heading. Down on the dock, Petra's little recorder sat charging on a shelf, still holding, unedited, the sound of a crew finishing breakfast while 9 ships closed in around them and found out, far too late, what that quiet actually meant.